Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice, and it's by user Deleted. My 29 female recently engaged friend 29 female implied I wasn't engaged because my boyfriend 31 male doesn't actually want to get married after being together 3 years, and I'm upset because I'm scared she's right. My friend Elise, 29 female, is engaged to Rick, 32 female, and I, 29 female, am dating Luke, 31 male. Elise and Rick have been engaged for a year, together for 2, and I've been with Luke for 3 years, fake names. So Elise and Rick had their engagement party Sunday afternoon. I was chatting with Elise, looking at her ring, and I'm not going to lie, I felt a bit of envy. Luke and I have talked about marriage, but we haven't even looked at rings yet. He says he wants to marry me though, but I do think it's taking a long time. So I asked Elise what made Rick propose to her, like how it happened. She told me that on their first date, she told him that he had a deadline. I asked what she meant, and she said that she told Rick she wasn't going to wait for around 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 years for a man, any man, not him in particular, to marry her. She said she wants kids with the right guy, but didn't want to have kids without a stable marriage and a house. Well, they have the house and now are getting married. Another one of her friends, don't know her age, but I'll call her Heidi, said she was shocked it didn't make Rick run for the hills. Elise laughed and said, well, it wasn't an ultimatum, it was a fact. If after 2 years you still can't tell if I'm the one, then I'm clearly not, and I will be moving on. Period. I told Elise that if I told Luke that, he would leave me. That's when Elise said that Luke probably isn't the right one. Then, if after 3 years he'd leave me for expecting marriage. That hurt my feelings, so I told her that marriages don't always last, and it doesn't mean someone is the one just because they propose. She said she wasn't worried, that she and Rick were in love and knew life would not be easy, but she was prepared to make it work. She also said she knows marriage isn't for everyone, which is fine, so long as your partner feels the same. But that marriage is a value of hers, and she wasn't going to waste time with someone who so clearly didn't have the same values as her. That's when Heidi asked me what my problem was. I told her I didn't have a problem, just stating a fact. Then Heidi asked how long I had been with Luke. I said 3 years, and she asked if I wanted to get married. I said yes. And when she asked what about Luke, I just excused myself to the restroom. Not much else happened at the party, but when Luke and I left, I told him about the conversation. Luke laughed and called Elise ridiculous. I asked what he meant and he said verbatim, only desperate and crazy women have a policy like that. Let it happen when it feels right. So I asked him if he wanted to marry me, to which he said of course. And I asked then why weren't we engaged when we'd been together longer. He said he wasn't ready yet and our relationship was fine the way it was. I asked how long did he have to wait to know, and he shrugged and said, does it matter? We're together and that's what's important. The conversation paused for a minute and then Luke asked me not to be like Elise. He said that he doesn't like being forced to do something. I asked him if Rick felt that way. He's good friends with Rick. He admitted that Rick never said he felt forced and that he had been planning to propose to Elise 6 months after they met, but waited a bit to make sure he wasn't just jumping into something. I asked Luke if it would be okay for me to look at some rings. He said I could, but to not get my heart set on anything because he wasn't ready, and he said even if he wasn't willing to spend more than $1,500 on an engagement ring. Elise's ring obviously cost more than that. I never asked her how much it was, but the center diamond is 2 carats and the rest of the band is covered in diamonds. I remember she was asked once how much it was. She wouldn't answer, but said that Rick bought a ring he wanted her to love and did not care about the price. He found the ring she'd like, looked at the price, and saved money to purchase it debt-free. I didn't mention that to Luke, but her telling me that came back when Luke said he was only willing to spend $1,500 on a ring I'm not even allowed to really look for. I'm not really sure why, but the conversation with Luke and Elise has made me very sad. I'm slightly angry at Elise for her implications, but mostly I'm disappointed in Luke based on our conversation Sunday. He hasn't mentioned it since this weekend, but it is all I can think about. Did Elise go about it the right way? Is Luke wasting my time? I don't know. Both of those conversations Sunday have me feeling like something is off. Well, OP, conversations definitely need to be had, particularly between you and Luke. I don't think I can answer if Elise went about it the right way because you're telling the story from your perspective, so it's what impression left Elise on you that we read. However, she did raise some crucial points. In my opinion, the fact that she was able to tell Rick off the bat what she expected in a relationship, I think is absolutely fine. Now, if Rick would have gotten up and said hard pass and just walked away, that would have been just as fine as well. It's all about aligning expectations and not setting yourself up for defeat. Sometimes we have to make really huge decisions, like somebody we really think is amazing, but we're just incompatible in the way that we have certain expectations of life. We just can't be together. And I think that's the conversation that you and Luke need to have. Not a, do you think you want to marry me in the future? Sure, I'll marry you in the future. That conversation in passing is not enough. Of course, it sucks to have to force this conversation when one of the two partners is getting impatient, but it is a conversation that has to happen. Considering you have all these questions, OP, I would sit down with Luke and ask him, what do you expect out of this relationship, like in the future, and can you describe what you think that would look like to you? And based on that, then you need to make a decision. Just be careful with the sunken cost fallacy. And what do you guys think OP should do? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Arsenal Kate says, everyone else covered Luke's issues well, but you owe Elise an apology. You told her at her engagement party that marriages don't always last and that Rick may not be the one for her. That's wildly unsupportive and an event literally celebrating their marriage. Just because she made you re-examine your own relationship didn't justify you taking it out on her. Brian or Mike says, you guys are almost 30. This is literally what dating is for, and Elise knew what she wanted and told her partner. Her partner either agreed or had the chance to run for the hills. You know which one he chose. She's partly right because it seems they had the same values. No, of course it doesn't mean the marriage will last for sure, but they communicated something very big out the gate and it happened. The way you described you and your boyfriend's conversations sounds like you two didn't really finish your conversation. Learn to communicate. In order to do that, you also need to figure out what you want and how long you're willing to wait. Elise knew what she wanted and she got it now. Again, it might not last, but she knew what she wanted. I hate to say this, but again, you guys are basically 30. Learn to talk about this stuff. Do you feel like your time is being wasted? Tell your boyfriend. What is your timeline for getting married? Does it match his? Does he see himself getting married in a year or two? Does he just not see it at all? Neither of you is wrong, but it might mean you're incompatible. Deleted says, this stood out to me. You should be able to tell your boyfriend, this is what I want for my life. I want marriage and kids and all that. And if you don't know if you can give that to me, you need to let me move on. He should want what you want for your life. He should certainly let you discuss it without dumping you. 3 years was my limit. After 3 years, if he didn't know, I'd have walked. Especially in your late 20s, early 30s, when you know what you want in life. You need to think about how long you're really willing to wait. If you want kids, you don't want to be 33 and realize he's not going to marry you. Additional information from OP. Elise and Rick will have been together for 3.5 years by the time they get married. I also think I gave the wrong impression of their relationship. Elise didn't demand a proposal from Rick, and she was surprised when it came. They honestly sound like they just had a whirlwind romance. She also didn't say she had to be married by the end of 2 years, but that you should know if you want to marry her by the end of 2 years and be ready to be engaged so long as financially, work-wise, and personal life everything is okay. They were together for a year and a couple of months before he proposed. He did not propose at 6 months. He told Luke he knew she was the one at 6 months and started looking for rings then, but they got engaged later than that. Also, I don't care how much Elise's ring costs or how big it is. I didn't include that part because I was being petty. I was annoyed because Luke basically told me I don't get a say in what I'd be wearing. He developed the budget on his own without talking to me about it, and he knows next to nothing about jewelry and has never asked me what I like. I always thought he'd do what Rick and other mutual friends did, which is look together, develop the budget together, and then he picks what he thinks I would like. Rick didn't have the money for Elise's ring, his own words, so he made a financially sound decision to save up for a ring he knew she'd like, but wouldn't break their bank either. I figured Luke was going to do the same thing, but apparently he had no intentions of doing so. Lastly, someone mentioned that Rick doesn't have as much going on as Luke does, which isn't true. I don't know what Rick actually does, but he works for a major company in the financial department. He's not an accountant, but he basically supervises all money coming and going, sort of like a treasurer. Elise is a school guidance counselor, so both are very educated, have no kids outside of their relationship, and are doing okay. Well, the community essentially agrees that OP and her boyfriend have to communicate and have to ask the hard questions, answer them, and see what goes from there. Hopefully that helped OP out. Also, OP gave us a lot of context about the whole situation. So now we gotta move on to the update to see how this story ends, but of course I gotta tell you about another playlist like this one that only has stories with updates. Now let's move on to the update. So I read all of the comments, but by the time I was able to get back on, my thread was locked. I didn't think it was going to take off like that. Anyway, one thing to clarify regarding me and Luke, he is very much a go with the flow type of person. More than I thought, actually. Now, the reason I didn't reply to my first thread is that I decided to talk to Luke first. Long story short, we broke up. Several comments said I needed to communicate what I wanted clearly to Luke, so I took an hour to write out what I really wanted in the next couple of years and then told Luke the night I posted the first thread. I told him that after 3 years we should be seriously considering the next step. I told him I wanted kids, and with my age I'm scared of health problems and complications that may happen. I told him that before we buy a house, we were looking, that I want to at least be engaged like Elise and Rick were. That's not a comparison per se, but I reflected on this and I think buying a house with a boyfriend who can't tell me when he wants to be engaged isn't very smart. Elise and Rick were engaged when they bought their house, and so were several of our married friends. And I realized that's the minimum stage in our relationship I want to be in before purchasing a home. Luke's reaction was not pleasant. He told me he felt like I was trapping him in a corner and demanding a ring when I wasn't. I told him I wanted a plan and to see if we were on the same page, but I wasn't expecting a ring tomorrow or anything, just over the next year or so. He told me he'll propose when he's ready, and me bringing it up over and over again is making him not want to do it because he thinks I just want a ring, but I don't. I want a family, but I don't want to be one of those women who has a kid with a man who doesn't actually want the same things as I do. I told him that he doesn't seem like he wants to get married, and that's when he said it. Luke told me he wants to get married, but admitted he didn't know anymore if he wanted to marry me in particular. When I asked why, he said he doesn't think I have enough ambition. Luke wants to get a promotion at his job. He works in marketing. He's going to school for his master's, and he's into self-improvement, like going to the gym and eating healthier and mental health books, etc. He said he felt like I just wanted a marriage and kids, and then I would be a stay-at-home mom, which he doesn't want me to do. He wants me to work, but I work as a secretary for a psychology service. Luke makes almost 3 times as much as I do, and I don't want to go back to school. I hated it the first time, and I can't afford to do it again even if I wanted to. Plus, I love my job, great pay and great benefits, and my bosses and co-workers are really cool. But he told me that was an excuse and he doesn't want to be tied to someone who is, as he said, okay with just being okay, and that he wants more than that out of life. I was angry because I feel like I have asked this question before and he always said he wants to marry me. I did tell him before that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom if we could afford it, and I guess he didn't want me to be. So I told him I was done with the conversation and have been staying at a friend's house. I've messaged him a couple of times to try and talk to him since, but he only responds saying he thinks we're on different pages and the relationship needs to be done so we can find what we want. I'm really sad and upset and feel like I wasted my time and that Elise was right. Luke took our relationship status off of Facebook and a ton of people have been asking what happened. His responses to my text messages also just seem so cold. From what I've heard from mutual friends, he sounds like he's doing okay and went out Friday night with some friends to a bar. No, I have not talked to Elise though, she did reach out, but that's what happened. Well, OP, of course it sucks when a relationship ends, but I really do think this was the best outcome possible for you two. You two were clearly not compatible in this regards. And about Elise, I do hope you remain friends with her, at least it seems like you two guys were really good friends before she said what she said that upset you. But in any case, OP, I wish you all the best in the future. Take care and thank you for sharing. Now, let's move on to the mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user Ladyblade War Angel. My cousin thought she was being so clever. It did not work out for her. A good few years back, I was about 24 to 25 years old. I went to Cyprus with my grandparents to visit relatives. My grandparents originally came from there and moved to the UK when they were little, 16. My cousin, 14 female, also came along. Now, it's important to mention that we're Greek Cypriots. Certain things are expected when we visit relatives, such as helping out with things if we can and offering our help for whatever our host might be doing. It's also worth mentioning that I have a sight problem. I was born with congenital cataracts and I'm 85% blind, but I am extremely independent in spite of it. So we were visiting relatives, and every time I offered to help out, either taking dishes into the kitchen, bringing them out of the kitchen, washing up, or even getting a glass of water, I kept being told to sit down, they could handle it. I didn't understand why, as I am perfectly capable. I thought it might have to do with my eyes. Then, one day, we were visiting a great auntie of ours, who owns a little summer home by the sea, not too far from where we were staying. Now, when we visit this auntie, I always go swimming. She's literally not even a couple of minutes away from the sea. Now, as I went to offer my help to my great aunt, I hear my 14-year-old cousin talking to her in Greek. Another important note, I can't string together a sentence in Greek. My father is English and had something against us speaking Greek. But although I'm not a fluent speaker, I can read, write, and understand Greek. My family doesn't know this. They assume that because I'm not a fluent speaker, that they can basically hide their conversations with other people in front of me. My cousin was telling my great aunt how clumsy I am, how stupid I am, how I'm a little soft in the head. She was saying it in Greek. She thought I couldn't understand her, but I knew exactly what she was saying. Even if I couldn't string sentences together myself, I knew what she was saying about me. I added 2 and 2 together and realized my cousin was very obviously telling all my relatives this. She did it because she thought she'd get praised if she helped bring out the food without me. I was angry, but I knew the perfect revenge. We ate lunch, and after we were finished eating, my great aunt asked my cousin for her help to take the dishes in and do the washing up, as she'd been on her feet most of the morning preparing the food. My cousin looked at me, knowing my great aunt couldn't speak English, and said, "Hey OP, Auntie needs help taking the plates in and doing the washing up." Because now she was bored and expected to run off to the beach and leave me doing the hard work of cleaning up after. So I looked at her and said, "But I'm too stupid and clumsy and soft in the head to help Auntie. Besides, she asked for your help, not mine." She went pale, realizing I knew what she'd said, but she doubled down. "I helped bring everything out. You could help take it all in." I laughed at her, picked up the book I'd brought with me and got up from the table, grabbed the towel I brought with me and went to walk off. My cousin started whining to my grandparents that I wasn't helping her. My grandmother looked at her and said, "You made your bed? Now you lie in it. Your cousin caught you lying about her and now she can go to the beach while you help your aunt." My cousin went completely white then. So I went to the beach, swam for 30 minutes, then chilled out on a deck chair, reading my book under the shade of a nice umbrella. By the time my grandparents called to me that we were heading home, my cousin had spent all of it helping to wash up, dry things, and put them away. She hadn't gotten to be lazy and go to the beach to enjoy the sea. I could have helped her. I simply decided that I wouldn't, as she never earned my help. Since then, every time we went to a relative's home and she was asked to help, I watched with a smirk on my face. To this day, I'm 37 this year, I still won't help her. She made out like I was incapable to other people, so now she suffers the consequences. It's the malicious compliance that keeps on giving to me. OP's edit. This didn't actually start out as something to carry on for years. I don't actually carry it on myself either. It started out as a consequences for her actions type of lesson. The family picked it up because she wouldn't admit to the lie and no one liked her lying. They don't actually make her do extra chores when I'm not there, as the whole thing started because she said I was incapable. So the family basically told her she had to help out her incapable cousin. Also, the family carried it on until this point because she refuses to admit to the lie. To this day, over a decade later, she still says that I'm incapable, clumsy, and soft in the head to any relatives that will listen. She's now a full-grown adult who refuses to let go of the lie, so the family has kept it up because she won't let it go. Well, OP, I guess your cousin has never seen Frozen. And like your grandma said, she made her bed, now she gets to lie in it. Thank you for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.